I just heard that there's another terror attack in New York. I just hear the governor of New York, Cuomo, come on and say it was a low-tech bomb. Oh, moron. You're not the manager at Best Buy. You're the governor of New York. Who cares what it was? What are you doing to stop it? And then the other moron, the blast hole, comes on and says, oh, it wasn't a well-planned attack. Now you're critiquing it? Yeah, that's good. Let them know what they did wrong so that they can improve on the next time. What a moron. Yeah, why don't you give them a list of all the plumbing supplies places in New York so the next pipe bomb could be made with the best materials? These people are out of their minds. And now all you hear is, were they on the terrorist watch list? Were they not on it? Where is this list? Why isn't this list posted all over the place? Why is it a secret? There's only like 200 people on it. The list of who bangs your sister is longer than that. It should be in every bodega. It should be on the scoreboard at Yankee Stadium. Everybody should know. The FBI's watching them. We're all getting attacked. What are they doing? We should all be watching because these people don't care. They don't care about you. Let me tell you something. If I was the governor right now, you would hear me say, okay, the 200 people on the watch list, we just kicked their doors in. We took them and their family, and they're on a leaky boat towards the middle of the ocean. Out of here. Do something already. These people, they're putting our lives in danger. They don't give a shit about us.
Callahan.
Sir?
I don't want any more trouble like you had last year in the Fillmore district. Understand? That's my policy.
Yeah, well, when an adult male is chasing a female with intent to commit rape, I shoot the bastard. That's my policy.
Intent? How did you establish that?
When a naked man is chasing a woman through an alley with a butcher knife and a heart on, I figure he isn't out collecting for the Red Cross.
I think he's got a point.
Well, happy Saturday to you. We're up here on Mount Huth, freezing our tails off. I checked our redneck rain gauge. Down in the hallway here, we haven't had a drop of rain. In Yuba County, we don't bother checking the rain outside the buildings. We just count it when it comes on inside. So we got our rain gauge. Maybe we should think of selling rain gauges. They're actually cheaper than a regular rain gauge, and you could double use it as a garbage can. Anyway, I thought I was going to have to throw it into all-wheel drive to get here, but it's clear and cold, north wind. Just the newscast saying there's going to be north wind gets me all upset. So here we are. We're out here, and the live stream is working today. Did the box come back? No, there's no box. It's a miracle. Sometimes it's just a miracle. Somebody's holding their tongue to the right side of the mouth, and the live stream's working. We don't even understand it out here. We understand very little about what goes on here. We're just here talking for food. And if you're listening for the first time, this is the Patriot, KMYC Radio, 1410 AM. And we're going to be here till noon today. And then a sports program comes on after us, but we're going to be talking live today. If you want to call in, you can, 530-742-5555. It is pro-choice station. Sometimes your calls are inconvenient, so we abort them. And particularly if it's not the right gender at the time, it comes and goes what gender we prefer. But we may have to abort the call. Don't feel offended. It's just part of living in a pro-choice society. So KMYCradio.com, if you want to listen on the live stream, KMYCradio.com, and then click on the Listen Live button, and you should be good to go. So if you're out there in an area that the reception is kind of funky, you can unfunky it by going to the live stream and dial it in loud and clear. If you can't hang for the whole day, or you want to tell your friend about it, and he missed it, and he wants to listen, but he can't listen on Saturdays, you can go to One Eye Blind Media on YouTube. Just go to the YouTube and go to One Eye Blind Media, and that channel, you can find Live with Lou on that channel, and you can pick your show, whatever date you want to listen to, and they've edited it a bit because some of the clips we use here on the radio, which are fine, YouTube has some copyright infringement issues, so for whatever reasons they have to take them off, which is okay with me. You just kind of get to listen to the talk, but not some of the clips. So have at it if you want. All right. Well, thank you for listening, and for those that didn't listen, thank you for not listening. Don't worry about it either way. I'm fine. And we are just going to plug along here. So I was noticing in the paper, the Appeal Democrat is they are just thirsting for a chance to give the Bendorf Zoo, or what they call 14 Forward, some good publicity. And it's the same way here a while back they gave Hands of Hope over in Yuba City. By the way, we're for you out there in these other 4 or 5 counties that we are broadcasting into, we're out here in eastern Yuba County, right at the base of the Sierra Nevada foothills. And so some of the talk, we talk about local things here, Yuba City, Marysville kind of stuff, even though you're Oroville, Chico, Lincoln, all that kind of stuff. So, but the fact is we all have the same problems because we're living in a communist state. And so when I talk about these things, you probably have the same issues in your area. So I wanted to mention that we have this homeless camp that didn't spring up because of the homeless. It was manufactured by government, and it violated every code, every law, every ordinance that could be violated to establish it. Nobody asked anybody's permission. Like, if you want to do a development or build a house or in an area, or put up a business, they got to go talk to the neighbors. You got to get permits. You got to get dust studies, noise studies, traffic studies, all kinds of studies, percolation studies. You got to get permits. You got to run electricity, sewage. They didn't do anything for all this. They just threw up some tough sheds, put a fence around it so the creatures couldn't get out and in at will. And they don't even have proper sewage or running water, and they actually have open pit draining. Unbelievable. If you do that out in Yuba County on your own, you get yourself arrested and fined, and they'd take your property from you. Talk about a communist operation. So anyway, the Hands of Hope over in Yuba City does a nice job, but one day they had a front page article on a lady that was their poster child, and I thought, they don't even know who that woman is, because I knew her. And I put her through a 1-year rehab, got her all straightened out, got her a job, and but she couldn't keep from screwing all these guys around town and getting drunk and everything all the time, so she kept getting back in the ditch. So they saved her for like the 7th time, I think, and put her on the front page of the Appeal Democrat. Well, now they put a former homeless man now counsels others. 14 Forward helped him get clean. Johnny McCullough, 61. He still isn't clean. He got kicked out of the rest. He ended up complaining to the Appeal Democrat about a front page article about him, nice photo of him and everything. And then they had to run a correction saying he wanted to give God the credit and the Twin Cities Rescue Mission. Well, the government in Yuba County has done everything they could to disrespect the rescue mission and to keep them off the front page of the paper. And the fact is that the rescue mission is the one doing the heavy lifting on homeless people in Yuba County and doing the heavy lifting on people from 14 forward. Because at night and on the weekends and most of the rest of the time, there's no one over there except creatures, dogs, cats in pens, and people bopping in and out of those tough sheds. And the rescue missions feeding them, showering them, having religious meetings, try to get them converted and off methamphetamines and heroin. But this McCullough fella, I was told last night, actually stole a lot of stuff out of the mission, sold it, made himself some money. So anyway, I'm telling you, these poor reporters, they just get snookered by these folks on the street. You know, what I like about people that really get straightened out, street people and people in prison, is they can read these people on the street. I think they ought to hire a bunch of those folks to run these homeless projects rather than these social workers that went down to Sac State or Chico State and come up here and they think they know something. And then the other people, like they hire from the Salvation Army, they get so euphoric that they actually are making some money for the first time in their life. And they make them a homeless czar, and all of a sudden they learn how to push paper instead of push people. And they think, oh, I'm actually accomplishing something at the end of the day. So there's an article in the paper this morning, the Appeal Democrat, talking about that Sutter County is finally, after, gosh, what, a year, 2 years, 3 years, they're actually going down into the river bottom, Sutter County Sheriff's deputies, and talking to people and enforcing the no camping ordinances down there. And then I read in this article that the social workers and stuff make trips into these camps every other week. I thought, well, what are they doing on the other weeks? I thought we hired all these people and we are empowered and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then I read where they're not even going to clean up the garbage until after this year's high water. I thought, well, why bother? It's just going to float on down to Sacramento. Just let it float. It's like one of the people said, well, the big problem is all the stuff left behind. Well, you know, it wouldn't get left behind if you kept them out of the river bottoms in the first place. Like people that want to, like 14 Forward, or what I call Bendorf Zoo, is right in my backyard. So I got these people all up and down in front of my house all day, and they're all wanting to dump stuff in my yard and in my side yard. They're wanting to like stash their CVS shopping carts full of their possessions. They're like little miniature U-Hauls, and stolen bicycles and stuff. And I used to call the police, but the police don't want to deal with it, so I just take care of it my own self. That's why you all need to pack a gun. And you just need to take care of your own turf, because the police don't want to fuss with it. And they don't want to fuss with homelessness. Now, we got a new police chief in town since Aaron Easton retired. So we have a new police chief, and we're hoping for better things where they actually enforce the law in the city of Marysville. Because up to this point, people can poop in front of your place. They can drop all their garbage in front of your place. They can sleep in your lawn. They can go in your backyard. They could just do whatever they want. Get drunk over there. In fact, they had a drunk, they just fished him out of the lake here Friday. Guy was drunk there at the pub right next to the lake, and he tried to walk home. And, you know, they used to have designated drivers. Now they're going to have a designated walker to just walk you home, because the guy can't even make it around the lake without dipping in the lake. So they fished a guy who was only in his 20s, poor guy. And I think he was having a birthday celebration, and that was the last birthday he's going to celebrate here anyway. Well, we got some issues. It's interesting. I find these articles on homelessness so fascinating. They called it, this is a really complicated situation. That is a red flag word on we don't think we can fix this, right? Remember, we're going to fix homelessness. But then they realize, after they pay these social workers $150,000 a year, that you can't force people in America to go into a drug rehab. And Home Depot does not want to hire heroin addicts or methamphetamine addicts. Or people with a bad criminal record. Like if they got a record for theft, Home Depot and Lowe's don't want them. Now, I was driving down the street in Yuba City yesterday, and at the corner of Shasta and Pluma Street, I saw a help wanted sign on a plumbing operation. And I can't remember the name of the plumbing operation, but it's been there for years, that building, old building, right at the northeast corner. If anybody you want to get they were looking for people that have technical skills in plumbing. And I guess plumbing problems are up. So this company needed a plumber or two. They got a help wanted sign right there at the northeast corner of Plumas and Shasta Street. And so, but who wants to hire somebody that won't show up or won't make it past the first payday or is under the influence or has got a bad attitude, right? Or got FUCKOFF tattooed across their forehead. That's a bad sign right there. So anyway, I was noticing in the paper that we got some more homeless people got arrested. You know, the story we are told is that a lot of these folks, or actually most of them, they are just victims of the recession. And they had, they were working for a corporation, and then all of a sudden, the downturn in the economy, and all of a sudden they went from a $250,000 home to a tent, right? So we got a guy here named James Francis Lott Fight. Anytime this is a hyphenated last name, that's always a bad sign to me if a guy's got a hyphenated last name. That's weird. And so this guy, 31-year-old homeless man, reportedly held a woman at knife point as she tried fleeing from his vehicle. Now, these are some of the poster children of 14 forward, I think. They had a drug dispute. Now that's always hard when you're loaded and you start to debate on who gets to keep the drugs, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, they arrested James and they got him over there in Yuba County Jail with a $500,000 bail. Now that's one homeless guy. Then we have another, Cecilia Palmer, 33, was arrested by Yuba County Sheriff on December 12th over on Simpson Lane, which is just down the street from where I'm speaking right now. And she took a vehicle without consent. Now, I know I'm sure there's a mistake here I'm sure it's just a mistake. She probably worked for, like Chase Bank right before the downturn in the economy. And then she got confused on which vehicle was hers. It's always possible, they make a lot of the same color and look vehicles, and you can go out and just get in the wrong vehicle occasionally and make that mistake. I haven't had that happen to me, but I'm sure it's possible. So both those people are over there sitting in Yuba County Jail. This week I may meet Cecilia. I don't know whether I may meet her. We have some classes over there, and we try to talk to people about this. And so the other thing that let's see. Oh yeah, we got another one here. Let me look at this one. This is another situation where, here's another one. Kelly Morrow, 36, homeless. Yuba City was arrested by the Sheriff's Department on the 13th at Bridge and Gray, suspicion of manufacturing or possessing weapons and driving under the influence. Well, that's a bad sign. At least he had a car. And so that's that one. So this is just a few days of homeless activity. But the other one that really got my attention, maybe you saw this in Tuesday's December 12th paper. A guy got drunk after he got off work, and somehow he got up on the railroad tracks and got himself hit by a train and knocked out, and somebody found him up there. The train never even saw him. And, well, anyway, let me just tell you what happened. He got found by some good Samaritan. They ended up hauling him over to the hospital, but I guess they needed to amputate his legs. So he wakes up after this drunk and ended up didn't have any legs. So he's suing everybody. It's illegal to be on a. Did you know that it's a violation of the law to walk up on the railroad tracks? That's not your property. But so many people don't care about what's legal, and they just do whatever they want. So he's suing the Union Pacific Railroad and Rideout Hospital for medical negligence. Just like unbelievable. This is unbelievable. So what can you say? This is just a sad situation when a guy loses his legs, or when a guy falls in Ellis Lake drunker than he can't even walk around the lake, right? Don't get near water. Listen, let me just I know Yuba County Health Department, those guys get $140,000, $150,000 a year to tell you to wear a hat when the sun's out, and to put on sunscreen, and to put a helmet on if you're going to ride in your bicycle, or to teach you how to install your own car seat. We got to have people pay you because you're too stupid to do that. Because when people go out, this is, the Robert Bendorf, who's county administrator now, he will make a good argument. That's why we have to have the health department, because people are too stupid. Once they get drunk, they want to walk around the lake and test themselves on how stable they are, or they want to walk up on the railroad tracks and think they can take on an Amtrak train. So anyway, this guy, I feel sorry for this guy. At least he isn't dead, but he's suing everybody. Says a camera at the front of the train showed Nevis was clearly visible to anyone paying attention to the tracks ahead. So in other words, they're saying the conductor wasn't watching. However, train operators never sounded the horn or applied the brakes, running over Nevis and severing both his legs above the knee. Man, it's a wonder what the guy ever even lived to have this Good Samaritan find. A dirt bike rider found him and hauled him over, got him over to the hospital, saved his life. And it's a wonder the dirt bike rider didn't get sued. But I think everybody in town's getting sued for this gentleman losing his legs. So just, I always say, we focus a lot on drug abuse in this country, but the biggest damage to, when you look at the cost to human life and relationships and DUIs and all that kind of stuff, there's no comparison between drug abuse and alcohol abuse. But I know a lot of you, even like I saw some people on Facebook that were church people, and they got in a big pissing contest over whether you should drink or not, or whether some drinking, right? It's just like, you just get tired of this. When we got one guy lost his legs within the last week, another guy that we fished him out of the lake. Isn't that amazing? And both of them just because of alcohol. If those guys would have been, maybe we should have just encouraged them to smoke weed. I'm sure they wouldn't have fallen in the lake. Well, they may have fallen in the lake over weed. I don't know whether they got run over by a train, but I wonder if I know these guys. It's just pretty sad. Well, the homeless thing goes on. Hundreds of thousands of dollars are being wasted. When we already, if you look at Transparent California, we spend millions of dollars a year on welfare workers and social service workers. And in the midst of it, we have all these people that are running around under the influence of alcohol and drugs. And so it says in this article that they don't want to leave the camp. You got to convince them to leave a place that's illegal for them to be, because if they leave, somebody's going to steal their stuff. But when they run out of there because of high water, I think it's probably cheaper to not go in and clean up all that mess and just let it float down to Sacramento and serve them right down there in Sacramento. Let the water take care of it. So maybe Mitnick is finally making a correct decision. So anyway, they're going to put off the cleanup. They said they're already spent. I didn't know this over in Sutter County. They said they've already spent, I think, close to $287,000 cleaning up the same areas earlier this year after the heavy rains. Wow. That's amazing. That's your tax dollars. Those are the same people that want you to pay more taxes. To pay more taxes. Isn't that something? That should be an attention getter. Oh, let's see. Are we done? We're done for the first half hour. We'll be right back. Don't go.
Bringing new meaning to the term first responders.
Fellow community members stepping forward, volunteering their time to help others faced with what might be some of the most traumatic incidents in their lives.
It's called the Trauma Intervention Program, or TIP. It's been used in communities across the United States for years, and its volunteers have been dispatched to provide what they call emotional first aid. A collaboration between police, paramedics, fire departments, and even hospital staff is making sure residents are emotionally taken care of in a time of crisis. Residents are volunteering their time with the Trauma Intervention Program, or TIP, dispatched to the scene of a fire, accident, or death to focus on the emotional needs of those left behind.
It's just being there and being comforting, like a good friend or an extension of your family.
Ready to assist, sit, and listen to community members in a time of tragedy.
To learn more about the Trauma Intervention Program, visit yubasuttertip.org or call 673-90.
Candace, all you do is criticize. You never offer any solutions to our community. Challenge accepted. My name is Candace Owens, and you are watching my new vlog series, The Declaration. You know that expression, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Okay, well the inverse to that expression is that if it is broke, we should fix it. And do you want to know what's broke? Voting for Democrats every 4 years results in buyer's remorse every 4 years later. Why don't we try something different, guys? Because everything else is racist. Right. So here's how fear politics work. My name is Ashley Evans, and I want the black vote. All I have to do is sprinkle the word racist on anything that is opposed to my agenda. Ready? Donald Trump? Racist. Republicans? Racist. Leaving the Paris Agreement? Racist. Hillary Clinton? Not racist, which is why I'm with her. The Democrats have figured out that fear absolutely dominates black people politically to the point of socioeconomic paralysis. Racism has pretty much become our boogeyman. We are not, I repeat, not living through the civil rights era, and we need to stop acting like we are. America, despite what CNN may tell you, is not a racist country. And when it was, despite what CNN may tell you, the Democrats were at the helm of it. Personally, when I hear the word racism nowadays, I assume it's just something that the Democrats don't want me to see, and so I intentionally go pursue it. But don't take it from me. Let's take a look at what our blind allegiance to the Democratic Party has earned us in territories that they are dominating. Flint, Michigan, not only one of the country's poorest cities, but also listed recently as one of the most dangerous. They don't even have clean drinking water. Detroit, a complete and utter urban failure, and I am not just talking about Eminem. They've got crime, they've got poverty, take your pick. Philadelphia, I feel like they win poorest major city almost every year. Not the greatest superlative, but you know, Democrats. Of course, we can't talk about poverty and crime-ridden cities without bringing up Chicago, another Democratic stronghold where 75% of those murdered are black and 71% of the murderers are also black. But we're not supposed to care about that, right? If we ask the Democrats running those cities why were there already 636 shootings that resulted in death this year? They'll tell us, look, the KKK, look, Charlottesville, look, the KKK is rallying in Charlottesville, where no black people died. And so what do we do in response? Do we focus on the real issues? No, of course not. We riot, we get arrested, we lose focus on what actually matters. Blue cities that have a Democratic stronghold are absolute disasters, and we can no longer afford to ignore the facts. Even the blue Connecticut, my home state, is headed down a bad path. I mean, apparently we looked at Chicago and thought, that seems like a sound economic plan. Keep taxing the productive citizens and rewarding those that do absolutely nothing. Let's see how fast we can bankrupt this place. The time is now for black minds to be unleashed and to revolt against the politics of fear. The question we should be asking ourselves is,
look how much African American communities have suffered under Democratic control. What do you have to lose by trying something new?
Absolutely nothing, Mr. President. Thank you guys so much for watching.
All right, welcome back. talking to the head of the rescue mission in Marysville, the Twin Cities Rescue Mission, which doesn't get a nickel. Well, let me back that up. Up until recently, they didn't get a nickel of government money. But then one day they woke up and all of a sudden there were bulldozers and stuff tearing up ground next to them, and they pushed the 14 Forward Zoo right up next to their front door. And they said, "Oh, happy to have you as a neighbor. And we're going to just cut a door in here so we could have all these people eat and shower over in your place." But they told me last night that the Sutter Yuba mental health dropped off a guy totally out of his mind, discombobulated mentally. And so now they didn't drop him off of 14 Forward or Bendorf Zoo. They didn't take him to a mental health hospital. They dropped him off a totally non-government funded Christian organization. And so they called him up and they said, what do you think we're going to do with this guy that's out of his mind? You got all the meds, you got hospitals, you got this, you got that, and we don't get any money from you guys. What are we going to do with this guy? He's out of his mind, liable to stab somebody. Oh, well, they told us, THEY, they told us to drop him off over there. Said, we can't put this guy in here. They don't even allow people that are out of their minds on drugs in there. You got to behave yourself at the rescue mission. So they said, well, you'll have to have the police bring him back. They said, why? You brought him over. Come and get him. Oh, well, no, you have to have the police bring him back. This is government at its best. Totally bureaucratic. Makes no sense. Everybody points to someone else and blames someone else. I had the public information officer, Russ Brown from Yuba County, write me, because I wrote an article in the Territorial Dispatch. You can still read it. Go read it for yourself. I wrote 2 articles, one on the whole boondoggle of raising sales taxes in the Yuba County. And so everybody threw a fit, said everything I wrote was heretical, untrue, inaccurate. So the question I was asked was, where did you get your population figures? I quoted, I think, Yuba County population at 73,000, and I can't remember, 315 or 312 million for the United States. And so the first question on an email was, where'd you get those figures? So anyway, I explained it. I got them off census and the internet, right? Because the last census was 2010. So I don't know if you even remember anybody ever coming by your house to see how many people live there. Do they come by every year, every month, every week, every other year, every third year, every fourth year? So they just guesstimate populations, right? And we can't even keep track of how many hundred homeless, just a few hundred people, but they want to nitpick whether I am saying 70,000, 71,000, 72,000, 73,000, 73,546 about the population of Yuba County. The only point I was trying to make is, I said we're already the highest taxed people in the United States. Well, they wanted to nitpick that, saying, well, I don't know what they were really saying, but they never did come back and tell me what the true population figures was after they nitpicked me, right? I said, well, what do you think they are? I asked them, what are they? Finally, we went back 4 or 5 times. Finally, I thought, I'm not getting paid to have this conversation. I'm not getting $180,000 a year to have this conversation. I'm at the end of my life. He's about halfway through. I'm not going to have a pissing contest over population. My concern is I'm sick and tired of people that make $230,000 a year wanting more money so they can get the next raise and then blaming it on police and fire. That's what I don't like. And I reminded people in that article, if you want to read it at territorialdispatch.biz, you can read it for yourself and see whether it sets fair with you or not, and look it up yourself. Don't email me, just look it up yourself. And if you don't like what I say, then okay, we don't need to have a conversation. That's just my opinion. You can sort of, a lot of times people don't have an opinion because they don't know jack diddly what they're talking about. It's funny to me that Yuba County, who knows how many people live in a particular county at any time? Have you ever thought about that? People are moving in, moving out, dropping dead, being born, right? We can't even keep track of all the people dropping dead, right? People are missing, like this guy they just dug out of Ellis Lake. They dredged him out of Ellis Lake. He's been missing. Do we count him alive or dead till we find him? Right? Jeez. This is the type of government you're funding at $180,000 a person. Yikes. Well, I wanted to just mention just a couple things here to kick off how we even got to stay on the air. We got some supporters that keep us on the air because we have to pay to be on the air here. So we got Greenest Construction helps us out, and the Plumbing Doctor helps us out, and they're old friends of mine, and they know what I'm up to. They trust me, and so they help keep me on the air. Plus, we have some people that donate towards the Church of Glad Tidings, and they help me out sometimes out here. They help pay the coverage of the cost here. But another couple people in the last few months that have wanted to support us is Sutter Butte's Tea Party Patriots. And they are, the dynamic part of that name is Patriots. So if you want to hang out with some Patriots or find out who Patriots are in town, go to their meeting. And that's at the first and third Monday night of every month out at Church of Glad Tidings. They use a building out there, Building 200 at 1179 Eager Road. Or if you can't see too well, just go to the corner of Highway 99 and Eager and drive in that driveway. You'll make it. So they meet on the first and third Monday of each month at 6:30, but it's open at 6, and they'll have some refreshments, and you'll get to meet some people. So if you want to keep up with them, the easiest way to get to their website is SB, like in Buttes, SBTPP.org. SBTPP.org. In other words, Sutter Butte's Tea Party Patriots.org. But it's SBTPP. Okay, you can check that out. Now, here's the deal. They're taking a break for the rest of December, and they'll be back on their mid-January meeting, which is the 15th. In other words, they meet the 1st and 3rd, so I think the 1st is like, I don't know whether that's on the Sunday or Monday or right on top of their first meeting. So they're going to take a holiday here on their meetings, and they'll catch you at the 3rd Monday of January. Okay? So check that out. The other group that has taken us on to help us stay on the air is Monty Hecker, and that's Elite Security. And so you can get involved out there. If you want a job, it's just like he's got help wanted up on his website. They're looking for workers out there. And you could go to EliteUniversalSecurity.com. Elite, that's ELITE, UniversalSecurity.com. And you can get a job out there. But the other thing they do can be used by lots of people if you don't want to go into the security business. But you need to get some concealed weapons permit training, or you want to learn how to use some pepper spray, or you want to maybe get involved in starting the process of learning the skills to be a guard or even get into law enforcement. They have all kinds of training going on out there, and you can go to it. And it's a lot cheaper than, say, go to Yuba College. And it's probably more convenient. So you can get in on handcuff training, taser certification training, de-escalation of force training, annual security guard training, guard card training. You got to keep up with all this stuff. So you can go to, on their website is on the school that they run to do all this, to API-academy.com. And you can get involved in this. You only have to be 18 to get involved in this. To be a cop, you got to be 21. So the courses they teach are in full compliance with the requirements mandated by the Bureau of Security and Investigative Services. So this isn't no like fly-by-night operation. They will get you squared away, and you can begin, before you even get to Yuba College, you can begin taking, or to a police academy, you can begin taking courses to help you get it on. All right? Those two groups, you ought to get involved with them. Let me give you a phone number of these guys, Elite Security and API Academy, 749 749-0280. All right, now I'm connected to a guy that used to be a professor at William Jessup University down in Rockland, California, or it's actually just off the freeway. It's just south of Lincoln, actually, I guess. You can see it as you drive down 65 there, William Jessup. It's a good university. But Glenn Gibson, I met Glenn. He used to be a missionary to the Philippines, and then he came over here. They were looking for a teacher. They don't call it a missions teacher. They call it some other term. But anyway, I ended up tag teaming, teaching a class down there on Monday nights many years ago with Glenn. Great guy, he and his wife. And so they taught there, or he taught there for a number of years, and then now they're working for a missions organization, I think out of Florida. But he sent this thing about his health care. And I keep hearing all these liberals. It's just like liberals, anything that Trump does, it's going to cause everybody to die. Did you notice that? They're going to change welfare, everybody's going to die. Obamacare, change Obamacare, people are going to die. So change net neutrality on the internet, people are going to die. So Obamacare, this is what Glenn Gibson, this is his personal experience with Obamacare. Glenn's a sharp guy, very nice guy, not vindictive, not bitter, he's a fair-minded guy. He says, I looked on the Obamacare exchanges just to see how much health insurance would cost there. Now, Glenn, I'm sure, is on one of these Christian programs like through Samaritan something. I can't remember. If you Google Christian health policies, Samaritan, you'll probably get to it. There's also, I think, well, there's a couple of them. I'll look them up later if you're interested. But anyway, he's probably on one of those Christian programs that are lots cheaper. And so they're actually, they're not really insurance companies. They're just pools of people that share their money to cover their costs. And it's very efficient, and a lot of my friends are on it. So he says, I looked on the Obamacare exchanges just to see how much health insurance would cost there. Now, liberals, it's amazing how they're just in lockstep loving this Obamacare, right? The cheapest plan, Glenn says, for me was $1,482 a month, or $17,784 a year, with no subsidy for anyone making over $65,000 a year. So I'm assuming Glenn's saying he and his wife are making $65,000 or more. So in other words, if he were to get on Obamacare with his salary, he would have to pay that $17,784 for the cheapest plan of Obamacare. So he says, at a minimum, I'd be expected to pay 27% of my income for health insurance. On top of that, I would have, with this plan, a $13,300 annual deductible. That would be another 20% of my income. So I would be expected to pay 47% of my income to health insurance and care if I made $65,000 a year with the cheapest bronze plan. And he says it was called the Affordable Care Act. Now, I want you to think about that concept right now of when government, they use euphemisms. That means they disguise what they're really doing by using another term. Like when Planned Parenthood kills 4,000 babies a day, that's called Planned Parenthood. Actually, when you kill a child, that doesn't have much to do with parenting. Unless you want to kill your teenager. I guess they could probably fit that in under Planned Parenthood as well. Just like said, that guy is being a pain in the rear to parent, so we're going to exterminate him. So Glenn, I don't know how much Glenn earns, but he was looking at the cheapest plan. So he did a hypothetical at $65,000, and at $65,000, I want you to think of that. You spend 47% of your income on health insurance. Say if you actually need to use the insurance, you're going to pay the first $13,300 out of your pocket. You'd be much better off just putting money aside, $17,784 a year aside, and then making your own health savings plan. But it's interesting how that the Democrats, liberals, will defend this as a good thing. I just think this is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. But the other thing that I find fascinating is the misuse of, in the English language, calling it the Affordable Care Act. It's just a complete lie, a complete lie. So I don't know whether you've been following the Bundy situation, Cliven, the Bundy family, and all these ranchers, farmers, cattle people, sheep people all over the West that are being run out of business by the Bureau of Land Management. Now you think, oh, the Bureau of Land Management, that's like a good organization, and they're like, how could they be doing, the Bundys must have done something wrong, or the Hammond family up in Oregon, you know, they caught their property on fire. Have you ever caught your property on fire, all you agricultural people out there? I've done burns on our property out at the Church of Glad Tidings, and I caught the whole Highway 99 on fire one day. Had to have Station 2 from Yuba City come out and hose it down. And sometimes fires just get out of hand, right? It just happens all the time. Do you remember that environmental protection group that screwed up that mine? Where was that, in Colorado, and polluted that entire river? Turned it completely yellow? There was nobody held accountable to that. Remember that? So anyway, the Bundys, remember the Malheur, the wildlife refuge up there in Oregon, and finally the FBI and everybody came in there and arrested everybody. They killed Lavoy Finicum, shot him. He was an unarmed guy, killed him. He was a father of like 10 kids. And then they arrested the Bundys, put them in jail up in Portland, Oregon, a bunch of people. Some of those guys pled out and pled guilty because they didn't have any wherewithal to fight this, and they couldn't stay in jail. The Bundys have been locked up for 2 years. Did you know that? No bail offered. And but the judge in Portland dropped all the charges. Did you follow that, or you just forget about the Bundys? This is if you ever thought of political prisoners, we don't have political prisoners in the United States. We actually do have political prisoners, and it'd be all these people that got involved in the Bundy case over outside of Las Vegas. And then they went up to protest. What's happening is the Bureau of Land Management, they have people just like any military force has people with automatic weapons, and they are killing animals, taking over properties and running people. They're bankrupting farms. And in their private, what's happening now is the trial is going on over in Las Vegas, Nevada, the second Bundy trial. And they just let, I think, Ryan or Ammon Bundy out of jail, but he's under house arrest with an ankle bracelet. Now, I want you to think about this. These guys have never committed a crime in their life except resisting the overtaking of their entire property and businesses by the Bureau of Land Management, so the government could sell uranium to Russia, and they could take over and sell property. Harry Reid and those people, former Senator Harry Reid in Nevada. This is all a corrupt fiasco, and a lot of ignorant Americans just think, oh, well, they must have done something wrong. Do you know that was a peaceful protest over there at Cliven Bundy's operation in Las Vegas, and they had government snipers all over the place going to shoot those people? I want you to think about that. Next time you want to protest over there at that Pelora Planned Parenthood, if you looked up and saw a Yuba City Police Department SWAT sniper laying on top of a building across the street pointing a gun at you, would that get your attention? Would that take the fun out of that protest? Maybe you wouldn't feel so strongly about pro-life then. Well, these people are fighting for their lives. If you want to get your mind blown, you need to go on the internet and look up Range Magazine and subscribe to it. It is a really great publication. I've been enjoying it for a long time. And the stories there of people that have been on the same property for 100 or 200 years, and now the government's coming in and just runs them out of business. Bureau of Land Management. Did you know that the state government has authority over those properties. They've allowed the federal government to oversee them, maybe because the state couldn't do it at one time. The states have the legal priority here. And in fact, the county government even has higher priority in some situations. That's why Cliven Bundy tried to get the local Clark County sheriff to tell the feds to get out of town. That's what John Agostini down here in El Dorado County did to the El Dorado National Forest people, Tahoe National Forest. The National Forest rangers and stuff kept harassing El Dorado County citizens. So Agostini finally told them to just put their guns away, get rid of their guns, and quit citing people in the national forest. Knock it off. I'm the sheriff, and we're not going to be prosecuting any of those people over here. So knock it off. County sheriffs have a lot of power. Now, here's what's happening is that I can't remember the Hammond father and his son. They started a fire like you do control burns, you know. So they would protect they have outbuildings, so they didn't want any fires to encroach upon their outbuildings because it's out in the wilderness. And the fire got out of hand a little bit and got over into some of the government property. Didn't burn any buildings. It just burned brush and stuff. And they put them in jail for that. The first judge said no, but the government then appealed, and they found a judge to put them back in jail for the second time. Unbelievable. These are just farmers. This is going on under the Obama administration. We're hoping that the Trump administration and Brian Zinke, who's the new Interior Director, Department of Interior, and former Navy SEAL, will say, enough is enough. Leave these people alone. So we're going to be right back. We've got 2 more hours to go. Don't...
Donald! Help me, Donald! Get us back! Get us back! I don't care what happens to Hillary! Get America back to honoring family again! Help us, Donald, please! Please! Make America great again! Make America great again! Make America great again! Please, God, help Donald Trump make America great again!
It's the most wonderful time in 8 years. Yet some kids are protesting while Trump fans investing their time with good cheer. Sing, it's the most wonderful time in 8 years. It's the happiest voting season of all. With each staff member, Trump picks Democrats up to their old tricks, just trashing them all. But it's the happiest election season of all. There'll be one party hosting, all 3 branches toasting, but how low now will the press go? They'll spin misguided stories trying to steal Trump's glory from a playbook written long, long ago. It's the most wonderful time in 8 years. There'll be much more enjoyment, a lot less unemployment, 'cause Trump will be near. It's the most wonderful time in 8 years. Hillary's party's not hosting, they're no longer toasting
Beyonce, Kanye, cop killers, racists, and the Muslim Brotherhood.
They ignored true stories of Hillary, who wasn't sorry for her crimes now and long ago. Now it's the most wonderful time in 8 years. We'll deport all the criminals, taxes will be minimal, bad trade deals disappear. It's the most wonderful time. Yes, the most wonderful time. Oh, the most wonderful time in 8 years.
Back. This is Live with Lou. You're listening to Lou Benninger here because Santos Vigil's making it happen behind the screen here. And we're going to be here for 2 more hours. I was talking earlier about how the Affordable Care Act is not caring and isn't affordable. But the government deceives the people that are forced to serve the government, whether it's at the federal, state, or local level. They deceive them with words, like the Affordable Care Act is neither affordable nor caring. Recently, in fact, this right up till today, people are throwing a fit about what they call net neutrality with the Federal Communications Commission, and probably under the Obama years you missed this, but the government began to regulate the federal, the internet, the Federal Communications Commission. So when there was a change in administration, they have begun unraveling or undoing the regulating of the internet. Did you know that the internet started and flourished without regulations? And so they're portraying like this net neutrality. Again, it's a euphemism. Net neutrality is not neutral. Let me give you an example, an analogy of net neutrality. Net neutrality is like, for instance, I have people that I support up and down my block because I work and I pay taxes. And so all up and down my block, there are people that don't work and don't pay taxes. So net neutrality in income means that the government takes some of my money and gives it to the guy next door. So we're all equal, right? So they take some from me and raise him up or her up. That's net neutrality. That's what they're talking about in the federal government. Now, I want you to think about any area of life that you think is working out pretty good, like the grocery store. When I go to the grocery store, there are like 20, 30, 40,000 items on those shelves. If the government took over the management, if they did net neutrality at the grocery store, you would have a handful of items on those things. They couldn't even get you bread to the store. Maybe you get one type of bread. You can go check this out. Try it for yourself, all you liberals out there that are freaking out about the internet, that somehow the internet's going to disappear because there's no net neutrality. All you have to do is go down and see how the grocery stores are working out in Venezuela, Laos, Cuba, right? Just check those places out and see how that's panning out for you. I don't know why a lot of you folks that are into socialism just don't move to where they're really doing, they got their pedal to the metal on socialism so you can actually enjoy it and embrace it and consider yourself a full-blown socialist and instead of trying to conflict it upon us here. So net neutrality is another euphemism where it actually means just the opposite of what it sounds like, just like Affordable Care Act. I was talking earlier about the Bundy case, and there is a Washington state representative, assemblyman up there named Matt Shea, and he's become very involved in the Bureau of Land Management, acting like little Nazis, and behaving like the FBI is today, in fact. They're actually trying to overthrow the government, the current government, which is Donald Trump-led government. They're not hiding it. It's you can see what's going on back in Washington. In fact, we'll play a clip later on in the show, how clear-cut that people are not being impartial and serving whoever's leading the government. They are trying to overthrow the Trump government. The FBI is. And the Bureau of Land Management is trying to throw farmers off the land. And so one of the lead investigators against the Bundys was a guy named Larry Wooten. And he became so disgusted because, you know what, whether it's the FBI or a police office or a sheriff's department, there are some good, honest people in there. And at some point, even though they're going to lose their career and probably get fired, they whistleblow. And they just say, you know, I can't stand this anymore. I can't do this. I'm not going to be in law enforcement and have this go on. And so Larry Wooten with the Bureau of Land Management, you know, they have law enforcement in the Bureau of Land Management. Remember when they bought millions of rounds of ammo under Obama? A lot of it went to the Bureau of Land Management. So Larry Wooten was the lead investigator for BLM into the Bunkerville Gold Butte operation that went bad for them in April 2014. That's the Bundy situation where they went out and they got tired of fighting with the Bundys over this issue because the Bundys weren't backing down, and in fact the Bundys are willing to die for the cause. So they figure, well, we're going to kill them and their cattle. So Larry Wooten's letter outlines violations and abuses committed by the BLM employees, led by a guy named Dan Love, which I believe Dan Love has now been fired. He was a renegade government employee that they allowed to go off the reservation to try to drive these farmers off their land. And so this article said that Wooten discovered what he felt were heinous acts committed by the BLM. And so he was the investigator for 3 years, and he began seeing things he didn't like. He said his investigation revealed a widespread pattern of bad judgment, lack of discipline, incredible bias, unprofessionalism, and misconduct. Now, if that same sentence could be applied to the Federal Bureau of Investigation right now with the Donald Trump Russia collusion baloney. He talks about unprofessionalism and misconduct as well as likely policy, ethical, and legal violations among senior and supervisorial staff at BLM's Office of Law Enforcement and Security. Wooten outlined specifics such as very derogatory name-calling when he described the unprofessional behavior. Additionally, Wooten states that this behavior was committed, quote, often by law enforcement supervisors who are potential witnesses and investigative team supervisors. These are the same people that ended up lead to the killing of Lavoy Finicum, who was a rancher that came to protest with the Bundys. Agent Wooten outlines in detail how Special Agent in Charge Dan Love was known for his bad behavior and allowed to get away with it as he was the BLM's director's boy. In other words, he was an enforcer, and they indicated they were going to hide and protect Dan Love. Wooten goes on to outline that Dan Love had what he called a kill book. I want you to listen to this. This is our government. He has a kill book as a trophy and, in essence, bragged about getting 3 individuals in Utah to kill themselves. In other words, ranchers. He tormented them so much that they ended their life because they were losing everything they had. He bragged about it. I want you to think about that. We have a guy in law enforcement who bragged he has a kill book, and he's working for the BLM. I want you to think about FBI agents. Trey Gowdy, you're going to hear from Trey Gowdy later about the FBI agents back in Washington, D.C., who targeted Don Trump to destroy him. The report also describes what appears to be additional people on the BLM hit list. This time, however, Wooten's own supervisor was an accessory. My supervisor even took photographs, he says, in the secure command post area of the Las Vegas FBI headquarters, and even after he was told no photographs were allowed, he recklessly emailed out photographs of the arrest tracking wall. This is a wall inside the Las Vegas FBI where they put culprits up there right thereafter. On that wall, Eric Parker and Cliven Bundy had X's through their face and body, indicating prejudice and bias. This is the FBI, who are not supposed to be executioners. Law enforcement simply is supposed to be enforcing the law, and the justice system, the courts, are supposed to sort out whether, in fact, people that are innocent are proven guilty. In the case of the Bundys, they've been incarcerated for 2 years. The report that Representative Shea shared has multiple pages and is presented below. I won't read it all, but it is shocking. Here's one thing. Here's a quote from a BLM person. This is a statement. Go out there and kick Cliven Bundy in the mouth or teeth and take his cattle. That's a quote out of one of the orders. Another quote, I need you to get the troops fired up to go get those cows and not take any crap from anyone. And they killed, I don't know whether you realize this, they killed a bunch of their cattle. They just shot them. On February 18, 2017, Wooten said, I was removed from my position as the case agent lead investigator for the Cliven Bundy Gold Butte, Nevada case. My supervisor told me that Stephen Marr, quote unquote, furiously demanded that I be removed from the case and mentioned something about us, in other words, us being the BLM, specifically my supervisor, not turning over discovery-related material. In other words, when you have a case, the prosecution is mandated by law. They call them Brady. It's a Brady law that if you have evidence, you have to share it with the defense. So everybody's working off the same material to argue whether the person's innocent or guilty. This article says we have previously reported that on the blatant Brady violations the prosecution continues to commit. They have withheld evidence that would have easily exonerated all 19 men incarcerated. The prosecution knew the Bundy family was not a threat, as they have already referred to the threat assessment report previously committed. These people should have never been incarcerated at all, let alone kept for nearly 2 years now. Anyway, on and on this goes. This thing is a horrible abuse of people's rights. The Constitution guarantees us rights. These people get nothing. You have no rights. You have no rights with an FBI being led by a Department of Justice with people like Rob Rosenstein. So even at the local level, state level here, we have an attorney general by the name of Xavier Becerra. He is a criminal and a liar. So we have a gas tax that been, in fact, I reminded, when Russ Brown, who's a public information officer for Yuba County, was wanting me to substantiate my statement that Yuba County taxpayers are some of the highest tax people in the country. And I asked him whether he was aware of the new gas tax or aware of the January 1 carbon gas tax that we're going to pay. But there is a measure being championed right now to walk back the gas tax. A recall of the gas tax, essentially. So when you have a proposition or a measure that qualifies for the ballot, when people sign it, and qualify it for the ballot, then the Attorney General of the state of California has to write. In other words, usually the proponents of the measure, they submit an argument for the recall, or they also submit a title, but it's up to the Attorney General to determine whether the description and the title is fair, right? But what happened was, under Governor Brown and really most attorney generals, they cheat. And they constantly change the title to deceive the voter. Have you ever gone into the voting booth and you read the thing and you think you're voting for something, but actually, when you vote yes, you're voting against it, right? It's very confusing. So the title that Attorney General Becerra gave the gas tax repeal reads this. Now listen to this. If you vote for this, this is how it reads, quote, exact quotes. It eliminates recently enacted road repair and transportation funding by repealing revenues dedicated for those purposes. I want to read that again. It eliminates recently enacted road repair and transportation funding by repealing revenues dedicated for those purposes. Do you see anything there about you being taxed or this repealing the tax? This sounds like they already have money in the bank, and now you're saying we don't want to spend that money for roads, doesn't it? It's a totally deceptive situation. In fact, so deceptive that a California judge ruled that it's totally deceptive. So Travis Allen, who is running this repeal, he said there is still rule of law in California. This proves it. They tried as hard as they could in court to mislead California voters and make it very unclear that this is a repeal of a massive tax. So the judge is saying this thing has to make sense. So this transportation package that's being repealed was championed by the governor as saying that's a long overdue solution for the state's crumbling roads, and was approved by the legislature 2/3 vote, right? It includes a 12% gas tax, a 20-cent diesel tax, and an increase of between $25 and $175 in annual vehicle registration fees, on top of what you're already paying. And Russ Brown doesn't think we're taxed enough. He thinks we need to have some more taxes. And so what I'm talking about here is the government continuing to deceive people to thinking this is what we need to do and this is why. And so the recent Marysville increase to 8.5% sales tax from 7.5%. Anything purchased in the city of Marysville or any vehicle purchased by any Marysville resident anywhere in the world, they portrayed that illegally. They portrayed it in collusion with David Lanza, who is a private businessman. They got him to fund it because it's illegal for the city council to fund their own campaign against their citizens. That's exactly what the county is going to be treading, the same thing. They're going to try to collude with somebody else to fund this campaign because they're actually using taxpayers' time and money to campaign against them to assess themselves taxes. So the city of Marysville finally scared people enough by saying we're not going to be able to respond to 911 calls in a timely manner. So if your husband's got emphysema problems or heart problems or whatever, there's no guarantee we're going to get there in a timely fashion to save his life unless you give us 1% more of every purchase you ever make in the next 10 years. Then they turned around and they claimed they needed that for police and fire. They turned right around and they put all that money in the general fund and it can be spent for pencils, paper towels, toilet paper, condoms, whatever they want to pay for it. They raised the salaries of employees in the city of Marysville. The argument was, well, they haven't had a raise in a long time. They did. If they would have told that to the people of Marysville ahead of time, they would not have supported that tax. The same way if the Yuba County supervisors are honest with the people of the county, they will not support this tax, but they will not be honest. It's bait and switch. It's the same thing that car car dealerships are accused of, where they entice you to the car lot with some amazing deal, and you get there and that car just isn't available right now. But this car is right over here at a little bit more money. That's exactly what's going on here. And so this is what, how many times have we voted for more water storage in the state of California? And you voted on the ballot thinking, my God, we got to have more water storage. We need to stop these floods. We need to have water for farmers, et cetera, et cetera. And when they take that money and they put it into bike paths or horse trails, right? Or they put it on some other kind of an environmental issue. How many times is that going to go on? Well, that's what's going on here, and it's something you got to pay attention to, or you'll miss it, and you'll get stuck voting the opposite way of what you really want to vote on. Now, I want to talk some about our politicians. We have a lot of people locked up that should trade spots with politicians, and we need to put the politicians in jail and release people that, they've all committed crimes in jail, but our politicians are also committing crimes, but we give them a break. Like, for instance, Hillary Clinton, a variety of people at the upper echelons, Obama, Barack Obama, all these people should be arrested. But it's like the banks were too big to fail. You remember under George Bush, so we gave them millions and millions of our tax dollars. Well, we had to pay taxes. You're not too big to fail, so they'll let you fail. So they think that Hillary and Bill Clinton, they can rape people, they can murder people, they can steal money, they can collude with the Russians, but then we spent 1 year right now talking about Trump colluding with the Russians, and the Clintons did it all the time. Hey, are we out of time? We're out of time. We're going to come back. We got one half a show left. They always tell me to remind you, don't go away, because some of you do, because you think that the show's over. We'll be right back.
Bringing new meaning to the term first responders.
Fellow community members stepping forward, volunteering their time to help others faced with what might be some of the most traumatic incidents in their lives.
It's called the Trauma Intervention Program, or TIP. It's been used in communities across the United States for years, and its volunteers have been dispatched to provide what they call emotional first aid.
A collaboration between police, paramedics, fire departments, and even hospital staff is making sure residents are emotionally taken care of in a time of crisis. Residents are volunteering their time with the Trauma Intervention Program, or TIP, dispatched to the scene of a fire, accident, or death to focus on the emotional needs of those left behind.
It's just being there and being comforting, like a good friend or an extension of your family.
Ready to assist, sit, and listen to community members in a time of tragedy.
To learn more about the Trauma Intervention Program, visit yubasuttertip.org or call 673-9300.
Hello, Liberty-loving patriots. This is Chrisanne Hall, Liberty's lobbyist and founder of Liberty First University. You're listening to Live with Lou on KMYC 1410 AM, The Patriot. The founding fathers and mothers didn't pledge their lives, their fortunes, their sacred honor, so we could sit around and rest on their laurels. They expected us to exercise our God-given rights and to practice eternal vigilance, to monitor and hold accountable our fellow citizens to whom we delegate power. The federal government is not the supreme law of the land. The Constitution is. To learn more about the Constitution and to help Lou and me get the word out about how our founders truly wanted this republic to operate, be sure to tune in to Live with Lou every Saturday from 9 a.m. to noon. Visit me at chrisannhall.com and at Liberty First University.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Why do you let bad things happen?
You ask very good questions. You know, Tracy, things that you might think are bad are not always bad. Sometimes there's a purpose you're not aware of.
But what about sickness? What about kids my age who get sick and die? Those are really bad things, aren't they?
Those are bad things. Yes, pain and suffering. That's a hard one to explain.
I'll bet.
I know this sounds like a cop-out, but there's nothing I can really do about pain and suffering. It's built into the system.
Which you invented.
Right. But my problem was I never could figure out how to make anything with just one side to it.
One side?
You ever see a front without a back?
No.
Top without a bottom?
No.
An up without a down?
No.
Okay. And there can't be good without bad. Life without death. Pleasure without pain. That's how it is. If I take sad away, happy has to go with it. If anyone knows another way, I wish they'd put it in the suggestion box.
Welcome back. I wanted to give a shout out to my friend Al Durbin today. I read in the paper this week that his wife Val died. I've known Al and Valerie for many, many years. Al and I actually got converted and began following Jesus. It was several months of each other, or maybe a year of each other. And Al every once in a while would call the show and say that he and Val were listening and to keep up the good work. So my heart was broken this week as I read about Al's wife, Valerie. And Al, I'm just let you know that you have a lot of friends in town, and we're all praying for you, and sad that you lost your partner. So before the break, I want to mention one other thing before I get back into this. Tomorrow is Sunday. Tomorrow is Law Enforcement Pie Day. And Jeff and Cherie Stevens at Stevens Farmhouse put this together. This is the third year. And at the Veterans Center at the corner of Butte House Road and Civic Center Boulevard in Yuba City, starting at 9 o'clock, there's a free breakfast put on by the Exchange Club, the Marysville Exchange Club, which is a big supporter of law enforcement. And they're partnering with the Stevens, who have wanted to say a big thank you to law enforcement. Started out in 2 counties. Now I think they've branched out into 4 counties, Yuba, Sutter, Colusa, and Butte, to present each person a pie to say thank you. And the reason is Jeff was a volunteer with TIP for 4 years. And when you get to work with law enforcement, you see the amazing work they do day in and day out. And so he got tired of all the trash talk on the media about law enforcement, wanted to do something positive for law enforcement. And so they started this pie operation. And so you can donate towards baking of these pies. They're going to produce 1,200 or more pies and distribute them that day to all these agencies. And so if you want to get in on that, you can contact Stevens Farmhouse and give $10 per pie, or however many pies you want to do. And I'm trying to get to the spot here on my list. So you can either go to 6219 Sawtell, which happens to be 99, Highway 99 south of Yuba City, 6219 Sawtell. Or probably if you just call them, they may be able to just take your card over the phone and do it that way at 673-0406, 673-0406, and you could sponsor a pie or more pies. And they will take care of the cooking and the delivering and all the other stuff. Any extra money, which is the cool part this year, last year any extra money went towards stopping human trafficking. This year, any extra money is going to go to a fund to offset expenses for the Cascade Fire victims up here in Yuba County. So get involved in that. If you know, Cherie and Jeff Stevens, although they're not volunteers with TIP, they're big sponsors of TIP. They actually did a pie raffle for TIP during our TIP fundraiser, recently and raised from somewhere between $2,000 and $2,500 for us. So we had our annual tip appreciation dinner last Thursday for all the trauma intervention volunteers and a family member or spouse or whatever, friend. And so the Stevens came, and so Cherie mentioned, she said, if you want to come and help us, you can. They're going to open it. They're going to start setting up at 7 in the morning over there on Sunday morning, tomorrow morning. But they said, just come and hang out and say thank you to law enforcement people as they come in and pick up pies. So I thought, oh, what a great idea to just be there and shake hands and say thank you. And I think there's going to be a few speakers. I don't know. I thought maybe Sheriff Durfer from Yuba County might be there. I heard that Sheriff Honia, or some people call it Honey, Honea, but some people I know with that spelling call it Honia. I understand he's going to be down there. He's the guy that actually saved your life when the Oroville Dam began to fail. The state of California wasn't around to give any notifications, get out of town, but Honia took charge, as a good county sheriff does, and just said, get out of town. All hell's breaking loose up here. That's Sheriff Honia, Corey Honia. So anyway, come on out if you want. Bring your kids, and I know a lot of parents are teaching. I have one friend of mine that they're baking cookies for juvenile hall at Christmas time. So a lot of parents are teaching their kids about the holidays and not just getting, but giving. So anyway, get involved and do something. Instead of just feel something, do something. Before the break, I was starting to talk about criminals and how sometimes we got the wrong people locked up. And many times, you think of a criminal and they're tatted up and got wild stuff on their bodies and looking weird. But a lot of criminals are looking pretty slick and got the expensive suits on, are teaching in our public school system. And in fact, I got an email earlier where a teacher got caught molesting kids down in L.A., and the two girls got $3 million awards. When you think of people that are in authority, whether they're FBI, cops, whether they're elected representatives, teachers, of course, we're really trusting. We're giving people amazing amounts of authority. They can actually put handcuffs on people, put them in the back of a car. They haven't been convicted yet. They put them in the back of a car, take them to jail, incarcerate them. They haven't even been convicted yet. You're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, but give them the authority to do that, trusting that they're making good judgments and they're unbiased, right? But what I just talked to you about the last hour was Bureau of Land Management and FBI authorities that are not only biased, but trying to undermine the citizens of this United States and take over the country. So we have people in office that have their hair cut nice. They're clean shaven. They're not all tatted up. They have $1,000 suits on, $800 suits, whatever suits cost nowadays. They drive fancy cars. And they are corrupt. They're criminals. They're stealing money. They do not have your best interests in mind. They have their best interests in mind. I just wanted to review a few just to give you may forget about this because life goes on and all of a sudden you don't connect the dots. It was just a few years ago that Senator Leland Yee, he was a child psychologist prior to getting into politics. He represented the area of San Francisco. And Leland Yee, like any politician, they get favorite issues they like to promote or fight for or whatever, fight against, fight for. And he was a big anti-gun guy. But he ended up being arrested. He ended up pleading guilty at 67 years of age to racketeering charges in connection with allegations he accepted bribes in exchange for his political influence. The sentence punctuates a case that started with a sprawling undercover FBI probe, et cetera, that even connected with people that were murderers in Chinatown. This guy's a child psychologist. Ye, in return for a lighter sentence, he confessed. And he even asked the judge, this is so amazing, he unsuccessfully urged the judge to consider allowing him to serve his sentence in home detentions. Can I just stay home? I'll behave myself at home so he could take care of his ailing wife, arguing that sending him to prison would not serve any purpose. Well, it served a purpose, make me feel good. That was a good purpose, make me feel good. So he cut a deal, and he forced him to admit he took payments in return for promises to use his political clout for a host of powerful interests, from the NFL owners to medical marijuana businesses. He was set to go on trial for political corruption, money laundering, gun trafficking. Now I want you to hold that thought. This is a guy who's trying to take your Second Amendment rights from you, and he was working to traffic guns into the Philippines. This is the type of people we have in Sacramento. And it's just not an isolated case. Said government officials identified more than $100,000 in bribes directed at Ye during an investigation, although his lawyers disputed that amount. Breyer called his involvement in this crime hypocritical and unfathomable. For you and Oliver and Linda, that means it's hard to even believe it. You think, I can't believe that guy did that. How about Tom Calderon? He's another one. There's a Calderon family that's been all over the California political scene. There's Tom, there's Ron, there's Charlie. They're all related. Tom Calderon pled guilty to money laundering. Former Democratic Assemblyman. Tom Calderon implicated his brother, saying the two concealed bribe money that Ron and Tom was receiving from two undercover agents working for the FBI. These guys are major players in Southern California. Ron Calderon faces 24 counts, including bribery, money laundering, tax fraud. Federal grand jury in 2014 indicted Calderon on charges he took $88,000 in bribes from a hospital executive and an FBI agent posing as a movie studio and executive, wanting to get tax credits for less taxes for making movies in California. In one alleged pay-to-play legislative transaction, I want you to think about this. When I read this, I want you to think Mayor Ricky Scamillo of Marysville, California, took $10,000 from marijuana dispensary people to okay an appeal for River City Phoenix out of Sacramento to get a license to sell marijuana in Marysville. Nothing happened. Just hold that thought. Listen to this. In one alleged pay-to-play legislative transaction, prosecutors accused Calderon of accepting bribes from a former CEO of a hospital seeking to preserve a workers' compensation rule allowing him to charge additional money for spinal surgeries. On and on and on it goes. Ron Calderon was suspended with pay. You know, in the legislature, if you get in trouble, they continue paying you until they finally can term you out of the legislature. It's like these guys saying, oh, yeah, I molested those 5 women. Well, I'm not going to run again. Just leave me here, finish my job. I'm not going to run. I'll finish out my term in 2018. Hey, screw that. Just leave, why don't you? Don't let the door hit you. So, Tom Calderon agreed that he allowed a $30,000 bribe to be funneled through the Calderon Group in exchange for Ron Calderon's support in lowering the California... Honestly, people, this is just totally ridiculous what's going on here. Kevin De Leon, which I'm going to talk more about in just a couple minutes, said this closes a sad chapter in the Senate's history about the Calderon family dynasty, just ripping off everybody, pay to play. Do you know that that most bills in the California legislature are not written by legislators, but they're written by lobbyists, and then they pay the legislator to carry them, and then the company that wrote the bill becomes the sponsor of the bill. Did you know that? So you can hear a sponsor, and then the politician, right? So Florida doesn't allow sponsors to pay politicians during the time of legislative work. It's forbidden. But in California, you can pay them. Like, you can just pay them off. Calderon solicited and received bribes for himself and his children. Just hustled money left and right. One or more of the Calderons have been part of the state legislature since 1982, when the election of Charlie Calderon. We had Charlie, Ron, and Tim, all of them crooks, just big old crooks. Now I'm going to get down to the what's going on right now with all these molestations. So we had a guy named, this is a fascinating. Now, I used to live, when I went to college, I lived with 4 other guys, and we lived in the prostitution area of Sacramento, 5th and T, that was called the red light district. And living in that apartment, I always knew what was going on in our apartment. If people are dealing drugs or smoking weed, or prostitutes were coming down the hallway to hustle to use one of our bedrooms, I always knew all that because I lived there, right? If you live somewhere, you generally know what's going on inside. Now, Raul Bocanegra, who's a Los Angeles Democrat, and Tom Mendoza, who's also a Democrat down there, and Kevin De Leon, who's also a Democrat from Los Angeles, they all live together because they get what they call per diem. They got a few $100s. It actually amounts to about $34,000, $37,000 a year per diem, in addition to a salary of over $100,000 a year. So they can, if they don't, since the Sacramento isn't in L.A., they give them money. They fit, hey, you know, we're paying you for doing this work, but then because you have to come up here and work up here, we're going to give you another $30,000 to eat up here, even though you had to eat anywhere. But to eat and pay electricity and have an apartment up here. So these guys go together and they rent an apartment together. And so Bocanegra and Mendoza have now been accused of groping, molesting, screwing women, assaulting women, and they all live in the same apartment. Now Kevin De Leon said he didn't understand anything about this, kind of like Obama. Like, he read all about the crisis with ISIS and everything in the paper. Said, I didn't know there was no ISIS. Said, I didn't know the IRS was cheating the Tea Party and cheating conservative groups. I didn't know Benghazi thing was corrupt until I read it in the paper. So Kevin De Leon lives with these guys, has no idea these guys are molesting women and bringing women back to the apartment. It's just an amazing thing. These guys are supposedly the smartest Mexicans in California, these 3 guys, and yet they just can't seem to put 2 and 2 together, and thank God they're not police officers, right? So Elise Flynn Gior spoke publicly and gave a talk to the Sacramento Bee, the fact that Bocanegra, who used to be a chief of staff for another politician, then he became a politician, got his own, job as an assemblyman. He stalked her around a downtown nightclub and grabbed her, ran his hands up under her dress, and tried to make a move on her right in a doggone nightclub. But that's not the only woman. So there's all kinds of people that come out against Bocanegra. He's one of these guys that said, well, I don't think then I'm going to run again. Well, thank you, Jesus. What a nice guy. All kinds of women are coming forward. I don't have time to go through all the details, but we got Kevin De Leon, who's one of the top guys. He's the pro tem leader of the Senate, and he's the guy that that jerked Janet Nguyen around, stopped her from speaking on the floor of the Senate. You remember her? And he jerked her around because she wanted to protest giving Tom Hayden an award for being a pro-communist. And so now De Leon's running against Dianne Feinstein for Senate, but he seems to be living with these molesters, but he didn't know anything about it. So as soon as they all got in trouble, he found himself another apartment. So anyway, Mendoza, 46, was repeatedly inviting his 23-year-old woman to visit him at night at the Sacramento apartment he shared with De Leon, and once invited her to spend the night at his hotel room at a Yolo County resort. Honestly, people, this is so screwed up down there in Sacramento. There is a whole list of people down there that are all in trouble and are going to be resigning, or there's going to be special elections, and on it goes. Now, the state Senate leader, Mr. Mendoza, De Leon, has asked Mendoza to take a leave of absence, which he has, but he says he's not. Well, we'll see. He's thinking about taking a leave of absence. They strongly suggested he take one. And De Leon announced the hiring of 2 law firms to handle the Mendoza and let me tell you about this one, and then we'll finish it after we come back. Now, a former assemblyman, she's a cancer surgeon down in Fresno, Linda Halderman. She has come out. She only served 2 years, and I looked on her record, and I wondered, how come she just served 2 years? And I thought, well, she came up here as a rookie congressman. She's a surgeon, right? She's all over the world doing surgeries. She's a specialist in breast cancer surgeries, and she also does hernia surgeries. Anyway, she decided to try to help and be in politics. She got up and got molested by Bob Hertzberg, who used to be the head of the assembly, I think. Bob Hertzberg, and now he's a senator. He's a Democrat from Los Angeles, and he kept grabbing her and hugging her. She protested to the head of the government down there. They did nothing. Finally, he's shoving his groin up into her. And this gal finally, so she just served 2 years and went back to being a full-time surgeon. So they've hired 2 law firms. Now, who do you think's paying for those law firms? That would be you and me. And do you think they're going to protect Mrs. Halderman and all these other people got molested, or they're protecting the criminals? They're protecting the criminals. It's the same way that the county of Sutter hired a law firm or an investigator to investigate Jason Parker, right? And then they turn, and Jason Parker's the chief investigator of the district attorney's office. He has accusations against the county council, and she's the one that the report's being turned into, and she's going to make the decision on whether he stays hired or not. It's like you go to a cop, he gives you a ticket, you say, well, I'm going to appeal the ticket, and he says, well, go ahead and appeal. That would be to me. Right? That's not right. You appeal to a different authority. There should be an independent authority you go to. If you go to a judge, he finds you guilty and you want to appeal, you don't come back to the same judge. You go to a different authority. So that's what's going on here. There's more to tell here. So we got what they call Hertzberg's. His nickname, this is a bad sign when you're called Huggy Bear. Huggy Bear Hertzberg down there in Sacramento. That's like Obama getting up and saying, I never heard of Lois Lerner before. I never heard of I just read it in the paper this morning when I got it. I never heard of any of this stuff of persecuting conservative organizations. We'll be right back.
We don't need little government programs to try and help the diversity of America. It's a diverse nation. And the idea that we just spin a roulette wheel, and if you're from Chechnya or Kazakhstan, you can get a green card, and then you can have 60 or 70 people sponsored by that green card holder, that's a bad SNL skit.
All right. I mentioned earlier how we used to be able to think the FBI, just solid patriots, like whoever, whether a Democrat leader or a Republican leader, they just enforced the law. They were law-abiding. The law was the rule. Well, we now realize we were misguided. And now we realize that people like Mueller and Rod Rosenstein, assistant to the Attorney General, are corrupt. And I have a clip here of Trey Gowdy, who is the congressman from South Carolina. You won't hear Rod and Rosenstein because Trey just kind of reads them the riot act here for a few minutes. So let's listen to this.
What in the hell is going on with the Department of Justice and the FBI? The reason we have special counsel, this is a very important point, and you know it, the reason we have special counsel is because of a conflict of interest. The regulation itself specifically makes reference to a conflict of interest. And we don't like conflicts of interest because it undercuts people's confidence in both the process and the result. So let's be really clear why we have special counsel. There was either a real or perceived conflict of interest that we were fearful would either impact the result or people's confidence in the process. That's why we have something called special counsel, and that's why we have special counsel in this fact pattern. And then lo and behold, those who are supposed to make sure there are no conflicts of interest seem to have a few of their own. There's a senior prosecutor who sent obsequious emails to a fact witness. She can be described as nothing other than a fact witness. She's a really important fact witness if you pursue the line of inquiry that my Democrat friends want to pursue. They got off of collusion and now they're on obstruction of justice. She may be the most important fact witness in an obstruction of justice case. And the senior prosecutor for this conflict of interest-free special counsel sent a fawning, obsequious email to a fact witness. And then we have prosecutors assigned to conduct this investigation who donated almost exclusively to one candidate over another. And then we have a prosecutor assigned to this conflict of interest-free team that attended what was supposed to be, what he'd hoped to be, a victory party for Secretary Clinton. And we have a senior DOJ official, Mr. Deputy Attorney General, with an office that used to be 2 doors down from yours, meeting with Fusion GPS. And Fusion GPS, of course, was paying for Russian dirt on the very person that they're supposed to be objectively investigating. And then that same senior DOJ official's wife, the one that met with Fusion GPS, his wife was on the payroll of Fusion GPS. And then we have a senior agent assigned to investigate Secretary Clinton's email, help draft the exoneration letter where we changed the language from grossly negligent to extremely careless, interviewed Secretary Clinton in an interview I've never seen, and I doubt you have either in your career as a prosecutor, interviewed Michael Flynn, was actively involved in the investigation into the Trump campaign before the Inspector General found his text. So this agent, in the middle of almost everything related to Secretary Clinton and President Trump, sent pro-Clinton texts, anti-Trump texts to his paramour in response to being told maybe he is where he is to protect the country from that menace, Donald Trump. He said, I can protect our country at many levels. And then he said Hillary Clinton should win 100 million to nothing. Now think about that, Mr. Deputy Attorney General. That's a pretty overwhelming victory. 100 million to 0. And when I read that last night, what I thought was this conflict of interest-free senior agent of the FBI can't think of a single solitary American who would vote for Donald Trump. That's where the 0 comes in. Not a single solitary American he can imagine would vote for Donald Trump. This is the conflict of interest-free special agent assigned. And then he went on, if that weren't enough, to belittle Trump supporters by saying he could smell them at a Walmart in Virginia. This is the person we needed to avoid a conflict of interest. And then he said this: they fully deserve to go and demonstrate the absolute bigoted nonsense of Trump. But he wasn't content to just disparage Donald Trump. He had to disparage Donald Trump's family. This is what he said, Mr. Deputy Attorney General. He said the douchebags are about to come out. He's talking about our First Lady and children, this conflict of interest-free special agent of the FBI. This is who we were told we needed to have an objective, impartial, fair, conflict of interest-free investigation. So he's openly pulling for the candidate he had a role in clearing, and he's openly investigating a candidate that he has bias against. And then if that's not enough, he says Trump is an effing idiot. What the F just happened to our country? This is the same man that said he would save our country. What happens when people who are supposed to cure the conflict of interest have even greater conflicts of interest than those they replace? That's not a rhetorical question. You nor I nor anyone else would ever sit Peter Strzok on a jury. We wouldn't have him objectively, dispassionately investigate anything, knowing what we know now. Why didn't we know it ahead of time? And my last question, my final question to you, and I appreciate the chairman's patience. How would you help me answer that question when I go back to South Carolina this weekend?
All right, so what we have at the state level is complete corruption in the same way they have federal corruption in what Trey Gowdy just talked about. And at the local level, we have the same thing. We have a board of supervisors that had a district attorney having sex with prostitutes, ripping off the taxpayers, misappropriating funds, never do demand. They ask me what they should do. That's a bad sign when the Board of Supervisors ask me after I complain about they didn't do nothing. Now we have the current assemblyman for our district that sat on that board, didn't do jack diddly. And it wants us to trust him with our state. James Gallagher didn't do anything, didn't say we should investigate the books of the district attorney of Sutter County. Now we have a district attorney, Amanda Hopper, who once Jason Parker, her chief investigator, questioned her privately about her philandering with one of his investigators because the whole office was in turmoil over it and chatting about it, wondering how come they're spending so much time in their offices not doing work, but wondering what they're doing. He asked her about it. That's when she had him removed from their headquarters and moved all the way across town and isolated where he couldn't work with any of his investigators. Now, I want you to think about that on the impact on criminal prosecution in Sutter County. Then, because they just left him over there waiting for him to quit, once his attorneys said, we're considering a suit because of unlawful handling of his case and employee problems and rights violations. Then they put him on administrative leave where he's not even involved and forbid him from talking to anybody in the county or for any kind of being in the presence of anybody over there. Now, I want you to think about that, and it all was triggered not by criminal activity, but simply him asking and questioning both his investigator, who's a married man, and D.A. Hopper, recently divorced, of being together and the impact that's having on the office. Now, when you look at these things and then you wonder what's going on, we have Dan Flores and Jim Whitaker, who made the decision to bring Scott Mitnick to town, who had been not just fired, but unanimously pissed off the Thousand Oaks City Council because he lied to them, did personal business on his own time, on business time, did personal business on company time, on the county taxpayers' time, tried to muscle people in the school system, get them fired because he didn't like the way his son's baseball team was being coached and managed, etc., and tried to strong-arm people doing business with the city to give money to the baseball team, tried to raise money through businesses that were doing business with the city of Thousand Oaks. This is the best person in the state of California, or even in the United States, that the headhunter could find to come up here. And these supervisors, Flores wasn't on the board when the Carl Adams debacle happened, but Jim Whitaker was. It makes you wonder of the integrity and character of the people doing the choosing. Does it not? And so now you have a situation where a guy, a special investigator or the chief investigator of the county of Sutter, that in the previous year, in 2016, was arresting people left and right, perverts, 40 perverts, as long as solving murder cases, and now all of a sudden, he's all in trouble. But the issue is the issue started when there was a question because people were gossiping in the DA's office. Again, it's interesting because in the Adams DA's office, there was all kinds of sexual promiscuity going on. Group sex, funky emails floating all around, people doing stupid stuff. They're supposed to be prosecuting cases, going after political enemies, prosecuting them with anti-drug money. And now you have the same thing. We have this sexual baloney going on in the district attorney's office. And we have the district attorney and the chief investigator, now the new chief investigator who took the place of Parker, who's now the partner of the DA, they're gone at the same time. What's up with that? You know, it's not a requirement for, did you know this, that elected officials are not required to show up at work hardly? Just a couple times a year? But the special investigators, DA investigators, are supposed to show up like you and me going to work. So you wonder what in the world's going on. So the Jean Jordan, who is going to be held accountable in a lawsuit by Parker, she's the one that's actually hired an outside investigator to report to her so she can then bring an action against Parker. That's not independent, is it? It's interesting that when Aaron Easton's wife died from a gunshot wound to the head that's never been resolved, that an independent organization like the Attorney General would be the one to investigate that, but they never have. It's been 2 years. And the case is not resolved, Sarah Easton's case. It's just a total breakdown of justice in the Yuba Sutter area. A total breakdown of justice. It's a bad situation. I wanted to mention before we get done here, we're getting into our last, blowing through our last hour. Just over 100 years ago, the first federal income tax began. You know how much it was? I think it was 1913, 1916, something like that. Russ Brown would know. He's the information officer. We got Wiki Man. We name him after Wikipedia. He knows all these things. But Russ Brown is my second Wiki Man. So, Russ, you can look this up. In 1913 or 1916, the original tax, most people paid around 1% tax in the United States of America. And we just did pretty good. We went from 0 to 120 pretty quick in this country, became one of the biggest industrialized nations overnight. Now, I want to go through these. I know it's going to be a pain in the rear, but I got to do this because you and Yuba County are going to get suckered on this sales tax. I'm going to cover some of the taxes that not all of us are subject to every one of them, but a lot of us are subject to a lot of them. I'm going to read them to you. Air transportation tax. You ever fly? Biodiesel fuel taxes. You ever have anything trucked, right? or you're a trucker, or you have anything brought to you, you're getting charged those. Building permit taxes, business registration taxes, capital gains taxes, cigarette taxes. If you ever been fined by a court, that's an indirect tax. Disposal fees, dog license taxes, driver's license fees, employment health insurance mandate tax, employer Medicare tax, employer Social Security tax, environmental fees tax, estate taxes, excise taxes on comprehensive health insurance plans, federal corporate taxes, federal income taxes, federal unemployment taxes, fishing license tax, flush taxes. Yes, this actually exists in some areas. Flush taxes. Food and beverage license tax, franchise business tax, garbage tax, gasoline tax, gift tax, gun ownership permits, hazardous material disposal fees, highway access fees, hotel taxes, hunting license taxes, import taxes, individual health mandate insurance taxes, inheritance taxes, insect control hazardous materials licenses, inspection fees, insurance premium taxes, interstate diesel fuel taxes, inventory taxes, IRA early withdrawal taxes, IRS interest taxes or charges. That's a tax on top of a tax. IRS penalties. That's a tax on top of a tax. Library taxes, license plate fees, liquor taxes, local corporate taxes, local income taxes, local school taxes, local unemployment taxes, luxury taxes, marriage and license taxes, Medicare taxes, Medicare tax surcharge on high-earning Americans under Obamacare, Obamacare and individual mandate excise tax, or if you don't buy it, Obamacare surtax on investment income, parking meters, passport fees, professional licenses and fees, property taxes, real estate taxes, recreational vehicle taxes, registration fees on new businesses, toll booth taxes, sales taxes, self-employment taxes, sewer and water taxes, school taxes, septic permit taxes, service charge taxes, Social Security taxes, special assessments for road repairs or construction, sports stadium taxes, state corporate taxes, state income taxes, state park entrance fees, state unemployment taxes, tanning fees tax, telephone 911 service taxes, telephone federal excise taxes, telephone federal universal service fee taxes, telephone minimum usage surcharge taxes, telephone state and local taxes, telephone universal access tax, the alternative minimum tax, tire recycling fees, tire taxes, tolls, like toll booths, traffic fines, it's an indirect form of taxation, use taxes, that's called an out-of-state purchases tax by another name, utility taxes, like PG&E, vehicle registration tax, waste management tax, water rights fees, watercraft registration and licensing fees, well permit fees, workers' compensation taxes, zoning permit fees. Yet, despite all these oppressive fees and taxations and surcharges, our local governments, our state governments, and our federal governments are broke. I want you to think about that. Just think about that. Social planners always want more. Now, in the article on, let me just say this. The U.S. tax code, this is about 5 years ago, had you look it up, Russ. Check it out. Confirm I got this right. 3.8 million words long. 3.8 million. U.S. taxpayers spend 7.6 billion hours complying federal tax requirements. 75 years ago, remember the 1040, Form 1040? You know how big it was 75 years ago? 2 pages. Today, the instructions are 189 pages. This article was written a few years ago. Unbelievable. I was noticing in the article, let's see, the article on the sales taxes, soups defer to residents on sales tax. That's a bunch of baloney right there. They're not deferring to residents. They don't care what the residents say. What they're going to do is put this on the ballot. The deferring to residents is all a big charade. It's called smoke and mirrors. They're going to make it look like they really care about what you think. What they care about is screwing you with more, taking more of your money and pretending like it's for police and fire. If they wanted more police and fire to have more, if they wanted police and fire to have more money, they would give it to them, and they would cut the other areas that they're wasting money, like all the money they're wasting on the homelessness. Now, in the article, you can go back and read it for yourself. I'm not trying to, you read it for yourself, because you're a big person. You can figure out, if you want to sock yourself in the nose, do it. December 14th, Thursday, Appeal Democrat. Soups defer to residents on sales tax. In that article, there's an interesting comment. There, each of the representatives, probation, sheriff, district attorney, supervisor, were all making a pitch for more money. And so in the comment, Pat McGrath, who's the district attorney and has been so for many years for Yuba County, made a comment that he has one worker for every 4,646 residents. Now, I don't know how many workers he has, so if I could multiply that out, maybe we could get to the exact number for Russ Brown. We could figure out the exact number of people that are actually lingering around Yuba County. But I couldn't really see the point Pat McGrath was making. I don't know whether if you looked at Sutter County or Yolo County or Butte or Placer, whether they have a lot more workers for every so many residents, right? But here's what really got me. I took my own figure of how many workers there are in Yuba County, which is over 1,000, right? Working for the county. So if you pretend, I'm gonna underestimate for Russ Brown's sake. If you just say there's 70,000 people in the county, which that's an underestimate, and if you just say there's 1,000 workers for Yuba County, which that's an underestimate. So I'm underestimating both, giving the county I'm giving the county the advantage here. In other words, in a 100-yard dash, I'm letting you start at the 25-yard mark. I'm going to catch you starting at number 1. You start at 25. For every 70 people in the county, we're supporting one government worker. How about that, Pat McGrath? For every 70 living people, that's kids that just got born 5 minutes ago. For every 70 people, kids and every other person that we think is a Homo sapien, we're supporting one government worker. To me, that is way too many. I don't need 70 people supporting me out there. Think about it. 70 people. For every 70 people, we got one worker. I may have said that just the opposite one time. Just think about that. 70 of us, we're supporting one government worker. Huh. It's a lot of people, a lot of folks out there working. So that's the tax situation. The one comment that I thought they made a lot of sense in on this, on page, it goes over to A8, it says that if we don't get this tax, we're going to have to cut other areas. And I thought, well, there you're finally getting down to it. Because that's what we need to do. We need to cut other areas and put that money into police and fire, because that's what primarily our money should be going towards. Police, fire, and I'm not opposed to helping Pat McGrath at the district attorney's office. I'm for getting rid of all this other stuff, and I'm for cutting people's pay. They talked about going to the union and cutting people's benefits and pay. Why is that a new thought? Nobody wanted to do that before. The reason is they just want to keep, I'll tell you, as soon as this tax goes through, they're going to give raises. In fact, the raises are already in the contracts. This money's just going to pay the raises. Are we out of time? Okay, we got one more break, and then we're going to finish this day.
New meaning to the term first responders.
Fellow community members stepping forward, volunteering their time to help others faced with what might be some of the most traumatic incidents in their lives.
It's called the Trauma Intervention Program, or TIP. It's been used in communities across the United States for years, and its volunteers have been dispatched to provide what they call emotional first aid. A collaboration between police, paramedics, fire departments, and even hospital staff is making sure residents are emotionally taken care of in a time of crisis. Residents are volunteering their time with the Trauma Intervention Program, or TIP, dispatched to the scene of a fire, accident, or death to focus on the emotional needs of those left behind.
It's just being there and being comforting, like a good friend or an extension of your family.
Ready to assist, sit, and listen to community members in a time of tragedy.
To learn more about the Trauma Intervention Program, visit yubasuttertip.org or call 673-9300.
When you go to bed at night, do you lock your doors? Of course you do. It's not because you hate your neighbors, but it's because you want to keep what you love inside safe. America is a home, and the border is our front door. So it's just protecting the house that is America.
All right. You're listening to Live with Lou, and just listen to the story of Santa Claus. Hey, I wanted to remind you that we're being brought to you by Sutter Butte's Tea Party Patriots. And if you want to do something or get involved and find out what's going on around this world, and you want to get something other than fake news, you should show up at the Patriot meeting. The next one, due to the holidays, is on the second or the third Monday night of January. That's the 15th, January 15th, and it's at Glad Tidings campus, Church of Glad Tidings, at the Highway 99 at Eager Road exit, and you can 1179 Eager, just pull in the parking lot, building 200. It's first building on your left, and they get going there at 6:30, but the doors open at 6. And you can check out upcoming action over there, what they're maybe speakers are having out in the future, or things you can get involved in by going to their website. It's SBTPP, the first initials for Sutter Butte's Tea Party Patriots, SBTPP.org. Check it out and get involved and do something to make a difference in our community. This coming year, we're going to have a lot of elections starting up, and so usually the Sutter Butte's Tea Party Patriots has some campaign forums, so if you've never met some of these candidates, you can probably meet them there, ask some questions, and see how they perform. The other group I want to mention is the Elite Security, and they are out here in Yuba County, but they're also up in Chico and Redding. So if you're listening from Butte County, you need a job, they might be able to put you to work. And you could contact them at 749-0280 if you have an interest in working in the security field or maybe even in their offices. I know they even have a lot of vehicles they maintain, and there may be a variety of jobs that you might be interested in. You could check it out at EliteUniversalSecurity.com. Elite Universal Security, and 749-0280. But they also have a great education aspect through API-Academy.com, API-Academy.com. So when you call that number, you can probably ask questions about either. But they do all kinds of training: pepper spray, handcuff training, taser training, de-escalation training, security guard training, firearms training, guard card training, and you can just dip into those at your convenience, and I'm sure they're a lot less expensive than taking those same classes at Yuba College through the Post Academy. So check it out, and all their courses are certified and fully comply with the Bureau of Security and Investigative Services. So also tomorrow is the Law Enforcement Pie Day. If you want to drop by there and have a breakfast and say hello to some law enforcement officials and check all that out. So what else do I want to tell you about? I found this interesting. You ever had your car stolen? Some of you voted for Prop 47. You probably forgot what that was now. That was to reduce, what it was pitched at you as is that a lot of people that did drugs were having, they were suffering the consequences of felonies where they should have actually been probably a misdemeanor if we were kinder. So 47 reduced the penalties on a lot of cases. And some of them reduced felonies to misdemeanors. And so one of them was that if you have a car that isn't worth more than $950, so this affects poor people. So if you buy a car, you're just getting on your feet, you just get a beater to get back and forth to work, and someone steals that car, they won't even go to jail under Prop 47. They'll just get cited. And it's a misdemeanor. Did you know that? Car theft, if the car isn't worth more than $950, is a misdemeanor. Now, you could actually get arrested for speeding and have more dire consequences than a car theft. And you could steal a car every month, right? You could actually go into a Best Buy or a Sears or any big box store, and you can walk out with a big flat screen TV as long as it's under $950. And you can do that every day of the week and get caught, and it's still going to be individual misdemeanors. Did you know that? Isn't that interesting? That's according to the Los Angeles Deputy District Attorneys Association. And she's president Michelle Hennessy is president of the Association of Los Angeles Deputy District Attorneys. And that's what she says could happen. You could steal a TV a day and get caught each time and get a misdemeanor citation and just keep on stealing. Is that amazing? Sometimes these crazy propositions have some consequences that you weren't told about when you voted for them. Is that something? It's just fascinating how there's this complete disconnect. Also, let's see if I can comment about a couple other things here. I was talking to somebody this week about the death tax. I'll tell you, I was talking to a couple different people, and they said, the first person I talked to, I didn't know we still had a death tax. And I said, yeah, we do. And then I thought of my friend Joe Betancourt, who runs Lakeside Colonial Chapel. It's a mortuary here in town. And I said, Joe, if I die, are you going to tax me to die? And he said, Lou, he said, if you get cremated, he said, we don't tax over here at Lakeside on the urn or the cardboard box we throw you in to burn you up. He said we don't tax, but he said a lot of mortuaries do. We tax you on the cardboard box and the urn we sell to your family. So we're taxing you on your way out. Now, some of you probably didn't know this, but there's estate taxes, and that's a death tax. So, in other words, you earned all this money in your lifetime, and you paid taxes on it, right? And then you bought things. You bought cars, you bought a piece of property, you farmed, you had a dairy, you ran cattle, right? But you paid taxes on all these many years. Every time you profited, you made any money, you paid taxes. But when you die, the government then comes in and takes more taxes off all that you accumulated, so it's double taxation. So under current laws, estates have to pay a 40% tax on any assets over $5.49 million per person. So in other words, the first $5.49 is excluded. Now you might think, well, heck, who has that kind of money? Actually, lots of people have that kind of money. I don't, but I mean lots of people do, because to farm, you got to have lots of acreage, and you have to have outbuildings, you have to have barns, and you have to have housing, and you have to have all kinds of things you have to have all kinds of equipment, right? So all that added together, if you're farming 1,000 acres or 2,000 acres or 150 acres or whatever, you have to have assets in order to do that farming. And it isn't hard to get up to millions of dollars. And I don't know, you've seen those big rice harvesters. They're expensive, right? And rice silos and such. So what happens is the government comes in after you've earned all. If this isn't pure socialism, I don't know what is. They just, in other words, they knock you down when you die. They want to remove all your assets and distribute it to other people through the government by giving it out to places like 14 Forward and all these welfare programs, right? Free food. So, so what this new bill is that they're talking about, you heard it on the advertisements or in the news today on the show here. There's a different House bill from a Senate bill. One bill would double the amount of exclusion to, like, say 10 to 11 million. And then they would charge 40% on anything left. The other would fully repeal the entire estate tax. But isn't this, you realize how evil this tax system is when you read this, the fine print on this stuff. One says we'll repeal the whole tax, but it won't occur until 2024. So it's 2000, so that's 7 more years. So in other words, you got to hope to live that long before they repeal the whole thing, if it passes. So my point is, if it's wrong, if it's contrary to what the Constitution and the Founding Fathers wanted, in other words, socialism, why not repeal it all now? Well, the reason they don't repeal it now is they don't want to give up all their benefits back there. It all comes down to the programs and the benefits. Now, last week, I talked a lot about these various, let me see if I can get back to it. I don't know whether I can find it. That I talked about all these things that we wasted money on, and some people got a big kick out of it, called the Porky Man Wastebook. Now, the money that they're taking away from hardworking Americans that accumulate because of their hard work and their wise investments, they end up taking that money and they'll spend it $1.7 million for a comedy club or $74 million for a program that allows taxpayer-backed loans to be repaid with peanuts. Or they'll study $300,000 to study if girls or boys spend more time playing with Barbie dolls, right? Or there's some more down here that somebody was laughing at me this week about. Do drunk birds slur when they sing? That's $5 million. Does cocaine make honeybees dance? That's $243,000. I think cocaine will make me dance. I'm not much into dancing. Cocaine might help me. What type of music do monkeys and chimpanzees prefer to listen to? They spent $1 million on that. It's interesting, you know, when Yuba County wants more money for taxes, wants more taxes for run the county, they spend money left and right. They're not concerned about saving money. They're spending 25 to 30% or 40% more for legal ads through the Appeal Democrat because the county administrator doesn't want to use the territorial dispatch. He acts like the money's his. You know, when you have your own money, you earn your own money. If you want to go spend twice as much money at your favorite restaurant because you like the owner and you don't like the other owners of restaurants, and you're buying the same type of food, quality of food, but you pay more for it because you like the people, it's totally cool, right? You stay at your favorite place, it's a little bit more, but you like the people. Totally cool. In government, that is not cool. That's called crony capitalism. When you pick winners and losers using somebody else's money, that's unethical. That's what our administration's doing in the county of Yuba. Now, recently, you know, if you break the law, all hell's going to break loose on you. But if the government breaks the law, they just break it every day, all the time, and nothing happens. I'll give you an example. This last few months, because the county of Yuba has been spending extra money for legal ads in the Appeal Democrat, the Territorial Dispatch filed a Freedom of Information document asking for the records of how much they're spending and how much they're paying per column inch, because it's our tax money, right? It's the government is not a private business. It's our tax money. and they're wasting our tax money. So they filed, in order to find out exactly how much they're spending, they filed a Freedom of Information Act request. By law, government is supposed to respond within 10 days to a Freedom of Information Act request. So the treasurer, Dan Mirzwa, County of Yuba, ignored that. Didn't respond. So that the Territorial Dispatch then called the County Council of Yuba County and said that not only did they not respond, but they blamed, the treasurer blamed County Council for holding up the response. Within 24 hours after that conversation, the information came through from the treasurer. Now, listen, people, when you're talking about a county government that is serving the needs of the public, that's not what I would call serving the needs of the public. When they blow off. Now, when we asked the city of Marysville for a copy of the contract that gave Cal Water, which is ripping off the citizens of the city of Marysville for the water use, we asked for the contract. Billy Fangman says at 10 days, at the 10-day limit, the office manager in the city of Marysville, Billy Fangman, said she didn't have time to get around to it. She's going on vacation. She'd get it when she came back. Now, if we did that in the private sector, they'd run you out of business. You'd lose that business. But the government doesn't give a damn. And they'll just do it whenever they darn well please, because really, they're not serving us. We're serving them. When you're making the per capita income in Yuba County is around $30,000. But we can let an information officer do a double check on that because he may find another source that boosts that up. Some people said they thought it was even lower. And we have all these little people in Yuba County supporting people making $250,000 a year. And for every 70 of them, we're supporting one of those people making 60, 80, 100, 200. Unbelievable. So that's the kind of response you get on your government. They spend money willy-nilly. I talked about this last week, I think a little bit. At least I wrote an article about it. Maybe I can't remember whether I wrote about something or talked about something or did it both. But there's an article in the Territorial Dispatch about the tribe that now has 40 acres that is non-taxable out there off 40 Mile Road. They're supposed to be building a casino on it, and they're not following the rules that they agreed to on a memorandum of understanding, commonly called an MOU. They're supposed to be paying the sheriff's department. They should have paid them over $500,000. They didn't. They're supposed to do all kinds of stuff according to MOU, legal stuff, permits and stuff. They didn't. And no one in the county's holding them accountable. Just exactly what we said to the supervisors when 3 supervisors voted for that. We said, you don't have the ability to even hold these guys accountable. They're going to do whatever they want in this county and be lawless. And that's exactly what's happening. Isn't that something? Hate to say I told you so, because the fact is we live here, and we're now faced with that baloney. So when you look at what the money is spent for and how the money is wasted right here in our own counties, who wants to give more money? What we need to do is shrink government. Our founding fathers didn't want a big government because of all the craziness that's going on. We got a Bureau of Land Management that's trying to kill people, has snipers trying to kill farmers. What's up with that? Federal Bureau of Investigation plotting to overthrow the new president of the United States. Are you getting this? Why aren't we all standing up and picketing and protesting and wanting Robert Mueller, to go to jail, to go have having these people that have been their emails are now coming out biased against the President of the United States? Why aren't they going to jail as law enforcement officials? It's unbelievable. Well, we're coming to an end here. I want to remind you there's a passage in the Bible that's a favorite passage of mine, and it reminds me and you, whether or not you believe in Jesus or the Bible or not, it's still true. And that is to pay attention this week, because you might meet an angel, and it's saying treat him good if you meet him. Take him out to lunch or something like that. So we'll see you. We're calling it a day, and have a Merry Christmas.